it didn't translate properly. Sorry, guys. Now I'm looking a little bit. This is supposed to be numbered differently. Uzobona ma'am ukuthi wenza kanjani. Okay, we'll start with the first page.
I'm just thinking what to say. Molweni. The response is molo. Molweni. Ninjani. Siphilile. Nabndiyaphila. It's 11 languages. So let's get on with it, okay? I'm also trying. The National Summit on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. This is a declaration by South African women, civil society organizations, and the government of South Africa. A declaration on the national response to gender-based violence by women, civil society organizations, and the government of South Africa. We have the preamble. We, the delegates of this South African National Summit on Gender-Based Violence, who represent survivors, the government of South Africa, and South African society more broadly, come from all walks of life, young and old, from urban, rural, all provinces, all sexual orientation, people with disability, and all those who experienced gender-based violence. We note that it is critical to have the involvement. Where is it now? It's gone. Yes. It is critical to have the involvement of many sectors of South African society across different experiences and identities, which have contributed to challenging GBV over the years, including organizations broadly and those working specifically with children, the older persons, migrants, LGBTQI, academia, labor, business, media, development agencies, government, and other relevant structures. The summit is primarily an outcome of the mobilization efforts by women of South Africa, social movements, and civil society. Marches by women of South Africa under the umbrella of the total shutdown and the occupation of the union buildings on 1st August 2018 demanded a national summit on gender-based violence. The impetus is the excessive scale of gender-based violence, including the killing and rape of women and children, and the ineffective court processes over the past years. This pointed to an escalation of GBV and femicide in South Africa. The summit is therefore considered a historical turning point, as it provided the opportunity for government, civil society, and social movements to work constructively towards eradicating gender-based violence. Deeply concerning is that South Africa is in a crisis, given the extent of gender-based violence and femicide. Femicide, the most severe form and consequence of GBV, has been found to be among the highest reported globally. Population studies show that more than a quarter of men reported rape, 27%, and data from women show between 25 and 40% experienced physical or sexual violence. Gender-based violence is an affront to our common humanity as South Africans, a violation of the Constitution of South Africa, and obstructs sustainable human development. The realization of a prosperous and vibrant democracy is deeply compromised by the effective disabling of more than half the country's population. It affects all levels of society. Women, girls, children, and gender non-conforming individuals are primarily the victims. It impacts profoundly on the lives and well-being of survivors, their families, the wider community and society, and reproduces itself. Recognizing that the Constitution sets the overarching framework for effectively responding to and preventing gender-based violence, a range of laws and policies, programs, and interventions are in place across all sectors to address respective forms of gender-based violence. Despite the above, implementation of these laws and policies is not effective as survivors continue to experience high levels of secondary victimization and the criminal justice system response is inadequate. Survivors' psychosocial and related needs are not being met, and often civil society organizations are bearing the brunt of providing care and response. Prevention is a key element in turning the tide on gender-based violence, but has not received the necessary attention. Images of women's objectification, men's entitlement, and normative gender roles contributes to fueling the levels of gender-based violence. There is a lack of cohesive, comprehensive, resourced, and strategic response to gender-based violence and femicide. There is poor accountability and necessary resourcing to meet the extent of the crisis. We therefore reaffirm our commitment to a united, comprehensive, and effective response to gender-based violence as a country. We endorse the President's call for all South Africans to respond to gender-based violence and to establish a multi-sectoral structure to allocate the necessary resources required and develop a national strategy. We appreciate the President's pledge to the women of South Africa to listen and respond with the urgency required. We resolve that as South Africans, to work collaboratively towards the eradication of gender-based violence and femicide. We commit ourselves to the following: political and community leadership to champion the cause and eradicate gender-based violence and femicides are held accountable through, amongst others, a code of conduct. The immediate establishment of an interim structure with the primary objective of establishing a national, multi-stakeholder, inclusive, representative, and functional council that is legislated and championed by the President within 6 months. A national strategic plan on gender-based violence and femicide is developed within the next 6 months that is implemented, resourced, monitored, and evaluated. Ensuring that all laws and policies, programs, and interventions are adequately planned, costed, and resourced in line within a gender-responsive planning, budgeting, and monitoring evaluation framework across government. Retain, resource, strengthen, and reinvigorate the national gender machinery. Promote women-centered economic development, strengthening the information and research base to develop effective, coordinated, evidence-based programming and policy in an ongoing way. a targeted social behavior change program to address patriarchal values and norms and structural drivers of gender-based violence, targeted at all sectors, including individuals, families, communities, civil society, religious and traditional leaders, the private sector, the media community, and others that are strategically placed to influence attitudes, behaviors, and practices supported by an effective resourced communication strategy. Strengthening comprehensive education that is responsive to the prevention of and response to gender-based violence at all stages of schooling. Convention of all communicators on GBV to adopt ethical guidelines to cover language used, approaches for sensitivity, especially social media package, and social context training for the media sector. Service optimization of frontline workers through, for example, ongoing capacity building, specialization, strengthened coordination informed by legislation, norms, standards, and protocols for gender-based violence. Fast-track the review of existing laws and policies on gender-based violence to be victim-centered and ensure all other relevant laws respond to GBV. Implement the recommendations that have been identified from reviews and legislative gaps. Revisit all outstanding laws that relate to GBV, including the decriminalization of sex work. Thank you very much.
As we said, this is a document that two groups were dealing with. We wanted to ensure that even those that are sitting in this room have an idea of what the declaration is. So we want to find out, I'm told there are inputs that were made. It's fine as it is. Okay. From civil society, where are the inputs for the declaration? So that we can do track changes, they can do track changes here. Eh? Okay, that's fine. Okay. The declaration that was read, encompasses all our contributions in the different commissions. So the additions that will come from civil society organizations will be incorporated in the declaration. And from there, we will then take it that we are all in agreement of what is in front of us, with additions that will come from the TTS, but is there any other that is not part of what is going to be inputted from here that wants to add? Because yours will be included because you met as a group. Okay. Hi, Steve. Mapaseka. Yeah. Okay. Come.
Thank you. I think, Chair, you must make it clear how inputs will be collected broadly and how civil society can contribute. There are certain things that are missing. Hate crime and hate speech is not a language included there. Secondly, you were talking earlier about the issues of inequalities when it comes to economic opportunities and employment. And I think the declaration must actually speak solely clearly about some of these social issues that speaks to economic opportunity and salaries, compensation. And also, the declaration must mention the burden of diseases. Gender-based violence is also the driver of the HIV epidemic. Again, you have resolved at the end fast tracking of decriminalization, which we appreciate, but we must fast track the hate crimes and the hate speech. It must be there. And we must also move away from the language of gender sensitive. We must speak gender transformative language in the declaration. And lastly, I'll speak on this. I'll send this input, it's okay? Two things. One, it's not only just political leadership, it's the political will and leadership. Because every time political leadership comes and change, there's no will. We want the political will and leadership. And lastly, it's shorten the circuit of accountability. We must root out incompetency as well.
Okay. There is, civil society organizations have an input there. Tidi, Praise, can you raise your hand? Praise, no, Praise, there's Praise there. Anybody with inputs? Anybody with inputs that needs to get into the declaration, be part of a small group that will sit with Praise and I think some over Brenda, Mapasika, and you too. You must be part of that group. That is going to ensure that that language is included. And I know that there was an input that came from the young lady with disability, the blind person. That the documents, even in the commissions, that she doesn't see women with disability there, especially the blind people. So if you can be part of that 4-people team to incorporate and finalize all the inputs. Okay? Now, with that understanding, that there will be 4 people who are going to ensure that all outstanding matters are included, can we then proceed with the program? Yes. Ma'am? Sips. Spaghetti. What's spaghetti? Spaghetti. There is some technical issues, so we wanted SABC if she's around to assist with it. So, Minister, how do you there is an incident that happened today, and we want to close that properly. We want to close that process properly. As I said earlier on, we now must leave this place as a united voice of women of South Africa. And where there are disagreements and where we have hurt other people, we are going to utilize this space to heal those open wounds. So I'm just waiting for that process, that person to come in. Should I give context? Oh. Because okay. We're waiting for one person, but I think for me as the program director, I want us to agree as a collective that the declaration that has been read today is adopted with the changes that have been made by the people that had inputs. Can we agree? Okay. So it was a worthwhile 1.5 days because we managed to come out with a declaration that we all can rally behind it. Yes, give us a serve. Let's. Malibongwe. Okay. Okay. Malibongwe igama lamakosikazi. Malibongwe igama lamakosikazi. Malibongwe, Malibongwe, Mali. There's no energy, shame. Malibongwe, Malibongwe, igama lamakosikazi. Malibongwe, igama lamakosikazi. Malibongwe, 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 Norway. Were you singing the song Sign Language? Yes. I saw that. This thing is taking forever. This thing is taking forever. Asoze apela manda. Elelizwe elamakosikazi. Asoze apela manda. Asoze apela manda. Malibongwe! 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 Onika, please come to the front. Onika, please come to the front. Thank you. This is the type of unity we are looking for. Moving from here. Okay, bautwi le bana shiana namfasi ralebo Brenda. Who's Brenda? Okay, then we continue the program, because the issue is that I said earlier on, there are changes that came from civil society. Yes. That's why I said, whatever input you have, bring them to a team and they are included. So if you didn't raise your hand, assumption is that you don't have anything to include. Because the declaration was read here. Mapaseka raised her hand. I forgot the name. What's the name? Tandile raised her hand. They raised their hands because they wanted to include language in the document. So if you still have anything to include, again, you are not going to include it here. Write it, go to that team that is incorporating it and include it. And we said, once we have done that, with your inputs included, we approve the declaration. And you said yes. You even clapped hands. Can we then proceed? Okay. We're going to give Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I know that we are almost at the end of our summits. As we know that as we are gathered here, mistakes are committed at various times. But also, we are here to build unity, to learn from our mistakes as we move forward. We had some incidences. One of those, it's an incident of a venue which was not sensitive to persons with disability. And we want to say to the conference, our sincere apologies to the summit about what happened, but we're also learning as we move forward in shaping our society. Because we all know we come from a past which was not sensitive. We've learned as government that we must also make sure such venues can be accessible to everybody. Our sincere apology. But we also have an incident of our young woman who happened to have committed what is unacceptable. She wants to come and apologize herself to the summit to say it was a mistake from her side, hence she decided to present herself to the conference to apologize without sending other people. So if we all agree, she is going to apologize and also say why she's apologizing to the summit. Thank you. Her name is Lerato. I hope we'll understand, look at her and understand that we also here to build. Any mistakes committed, one of our objectives as a summit, it's also to build. So she's here to apologize, Ratu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lerato. I'm the one who shared the events, the images of the events happening at the summit, and I've just realized that the pictures of Ospindi and the pictures of the silent protest. So can I really ask for forgiveness from her, Ospindi, and the summit at large? And thank you for affording me this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, at this stage, I am joined by Bishop Zamukolo Mfihlo, who has been a part of this two-day summit on gender-based violence and femicide. Of course, a part of the reason that we have the bishop here is because the religious community has come under a lot of spotlight, especially with the Omotoso trial taking place in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. We've seen victims, alleged victims, Cheryl Zondi, of course, giving testimony there that is very emotional and gruesome, and that has placed a lot of attention on the churches. But firstly, I mean, have you been noticing, paid attention to this trial taking place in PE, and just your thoughts on that?
Yes, we do, especially as pastors in Western Cape. We do find it, this thing is coming is like it's going to explode in our country, especially in our townships. So as Abatunywa Ministers Fraternity, we had a meeting. We are trying to engage with another different religious that we are saying, look, this thing of Pastor Omotoso, we also believe that in our society or in our country, that as someone who is being found guilty, Omotoso is supposed to get his chance to face it on the court stand.
Okay, so you're saying that he should not be prejudged before the trial has been concluded, is what you're calling for?
Yes, that's what are we saying. Because what are we saying on that of Omotoso? That let's give the law the chance to play its course. Because our fear, it's simple, is that we are afraid of the Christian xenophobia attack that could be happen in our society.
But then, of course, as much as you're saying that we must not jump into conclusion in this matter, there are concerns of sexual abuses within the religious sector. Certainly, the Cheryl Zondi case is not the only one. There's, I think, about 40 witnesses in that case alone. We've seen all around the world that the religious sector is known for some sexual abuses. So at what point does the religious groups take responsibility and try to cleanse themselves?
To clean ourselves as a religious, for that incident, yes, it is true, because we saw it, we hear it on the radios, but this one of Omotoso, it looks like it's a famous one, and we are believing that why is it look like it's a famous one, Omotoso? Is it because it's a foreigner? So we want the law of South Africa, when it takes its course, to clean each and everything that is called by the religious sector in our society.
Okay, but regardless of the widespread coverage and publicity of the Omotoso trial itself, let's speak generally now within the religious sector and some allegations that we've seen in the past. And you said yourself that, yes, you've heard on the radio. So speak on that.
On that, Chief, before I say it, look, there was an incident in George by August. The pastor was killing the girlfriend because of $500,000. And that incident we heard once on the TV when we saw it. After that, we don't know what is happening. Is it the case still on? Where is the man? Is it out of the bail, or is it still on a trial? That's what we are saying. The government, by the way, the law, it must, when it is busy with those stuff, it must take it in one side. Whoever is guilty is a pastor, is a woman of the church, whatever, as long as he's calling himself or herself a woman or a man of God, that person is supposed to be prosecuted. Because our country, you know, we are in a nice and living country that we are praying for, preaching for peace. And we are saying to the nation, for this thing of Omotoso, we are afraid of one day is going to come to the end. And as the religious, we want to say at the end, then we will come and said our opinions.
All right. So you're coming from Abatunywa Ministers Fraternity from Cape Town. So now, you've been here for 2 days. You've mentioned the Omotoso matter. So what are you going to be doing now to address gender-based violence from your fraternity?
From our fraternity, I was speaking with other guy here. Is busy, is coming to Cape Town also, because we are saying, for this gender-basic violence against the women, I think we must start to us as the men. Because if every time we are coming where the women are crying and we just listen, and as the men we are doing nothing, then this thing won't come to the end. We need to have the collective of the men go out there and tell, because a real man doesn't abuse a woman.
All right. Bishop, thank you very much for your time. That is Bishop Zamuxolo Mfihlo, just giving us his inputs there. The summit, of course, is coming to an end right now. And some of the declarations that have been made is that a national strategy on fighting gender-based violence needs to be established within 6 months. So that is part of the declaration that has come out of here. And, of course, calls for a national structure to make sure that they monitor that implementation. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I do have the monitor, but this is my picture on. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Peter, and our viewers at home. The commission, rather the summit on gender-based violence is continuing. However, it is now reaching the end. This is day 2. Of course, this is a 2-day summit that had about 1,200 delegates, but some of the delegates have already left. And what is currently happening inside, they were going through the process of going through declaration of the summit, but however there are some delays that we are currently seeing inside with regards to some of the declaration, but we, of course, will find out more as to exactly where the difference is coming from. But of course you will understand that these are different groups. They may be all representing women rights, or they may all be gender activists, but of course they come from with different interests, with different priorities. And so to get all this group of women to agree on a strategy, to agree on a set list of priorities going forward. But so far what was mentioned is that there needs to be a national structure that needs to be established that is going to be looking at issues of gender-based violence, and they're saying that government needs to develop a gender-based violence strategic plan, a plan that will, of course, be monitored by that structure that they've called for, and they've said, of course, they wanted this structure to be based within the presidency to ensure that, of course, it follows up on the agreements that are done today, that they come to agree today. But also the religious sector also came under a lot of scrutiny, saying that it also attention needs to be paid to the religious sector here, especially with the Motoso trial that we are seeing in Port Elizabeth. And to that end, we spoke to Bishop Zamukolo Mfihlo from Abatunywa Ministers Fraternity in Cape Town. And if you can just listen to that interview with the Bishop. Well, at this stage, I am joined by Bishop Zamukolo Mfihlo, who has been a part of this 2-day summit on gender-based violence and femicide. Of course, a part of the reason that we have the bishop here is because the religious community has come under a lot of spotlight, especially with the Motoso trial taking place in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. We've seen victims, alleged victims, Cheryl Zondi, of course, giving testimony there that is very emotional and gruesome, and that has placed a lot of attention on the churches. But firstly, I mean, have you been noticing, paid attention to this trial taking place in PE, and just your thoughts on that?
Yes, we do, especially as pastors in Western Cape. We do find it, this thing is coming is like it's going to explode in our country, especially in our townships. So as Abatunywa Ministers Fraternity, we had a meeting. We are trying to engage with another different religious that we are saying, look, this thing of Pastor Omotoso, we also believe that in our society or in our country, that as someone who is been found guilty, Omotoso is supposed to get his chance to face it on the court stand.
Okay, so you're saying that he should not be prejudged before the trial has been concluded, is what you're calling for?
Yes, that's what are we saying. Because what are we saying on that of Omotoso, that let's give the law the chance to play its course. Because our fear, it's simple, is that we are afraid of the Christian xenophobia attack that could be happen in our society.
But then, of course, as much as you're saying that we must not jump into conclusion in this matter, there are concerns of sexual abuses within the religious sector. Certainly, the Cheryl Zondi case is not the only one. There's, I think, about 40 witnesses in that case alone. We've seen all around the world that the religious sector is known for some sexual abuses. So at what point does the religious groups take responsibility and try to cleanse themselves?
To clean ourselves as a religious, for that incident, yes, it is true, because we saw it, we hear it on the radios, but this one of Omotoso, it looks like it's a famous one, and we are believing that why does it look like it's a famous one, Omotoso? Is it because it's a foreigner? So we want the law of South Africa, when it takes its course, to clean each and everything that is called by the religious sector in our society.
Okay, but regardless of the widespread coverage and publicity of the Omotoso trial itself, let's speak generally now within the religious sector and some allegations that we've seen in the past. And you said yourself that, yes, you've heard on the radio. So speak on that.
On that, Chief, before I say it, look, there was an incident in George by August. The pastor was killing the girlfriend because of 500,000. And that incident we heard once on the TV when we saw it. After that, we don't know what is happening. Is the case still on? Where is the man? Is it out of the bail or is it still on a trial? That's what we are saying. The government, by the way, the law, it must, when it is busy with those stuff, it must take it in one side. Whoever is guilty is a pastor, is a woman of the church, whatever, as long as he's calling himself or herself a woman or a man of God, that person is supposed to be prosecuted. Because our country, we are in a nice and living country that we are praying for, preaching for peace. And we are saying to the nation, for this thing of Omotoso, we are afraid of one day is going to come to the end. And as the religious, we want to say at the end, then we will come and said our opinions.
All right. So you're coming from Abatunywa Ministers Fraternity from Cape Town. So now, you've been here for 2 days. You've mentioned the Omotoso matter. So what are you going to be doing now to address gender-based violence from your fraternity?
From our fraternity, I was speaking with other guy here. Is busy, is coming to Cape Town also, because we are saying, for this gender-basic violence against the women, I think we must start to us as the men. Because if every time we are coming where the women are crying and we just listen, and as the men we are doing nothing, then this thing won't come to the end. We need to have the collective of the men go out there and tell, because a real man doesn't abuse a woman.
All right. Bishop, thank you very much for your time. That is Bishop Zamuqolo Mfihlo, just giving us his inputs there. Well, of course, that was my interview earlier with Bishop Zamuqolo Mfihlo, who's also part of this summit on gender-based violence. But right now, coming back to current events, there is a delay inside that we are experiencing as we were, of course, listening to those declarations. And I am joined here. If you can just please, ma'am, introduce yourself, give me your name and your surname, and just tell me what's happening or what's causing the delay inside.
Okay, I'm sorry, first of all, because I'm a bit enraged. Okay, not a bit, I'm enraged. My name is Patricia Nedoe. I am the regional organizer for Total Shutdown in Bembe District in Venda. And what happened is a situation that we really didn't want to speak about. We just wanted to address it within our organization. But then what happened is that one of the ladies shared, you remember Pindile yesterday? Yeah, that whole thing where she was trying to prove to the president that this is what's happening and this is the situation that we're receiving from the government. Someone shared a picture of her without her consent, and then we called her out on it, and we asked the committee, the steering committee spoke to her, and then they brought her there so she can apologize. And for me, I felt that apology is it's one of the most insincere things that I've ever heard in my whole entire life. And that is an insult, because we're here trying to strategize on how to set up the whole committee for gender-based violence. And accountability is one of the most important aspects. So if we cannot hold our own accountable, then how then are we going to hold the whole country accountable? Those who are perpetrators, how are we going to hold them accountable? And also, one of the things is that
Okay, just forgive me, for clarity's sake. Pindile, we spoke to her earlier on, and she said the reason that she showed her scars, she wanted to show the reality that yes. So then, why is there seemingly a problem around this issue of Pindile having shown her scars?
we don't have a problem. We as an organization, we don't have a problem. I can't speak for everybody else, but I personally don't have a problem, because it seems like that is the only way that we can get people's attention. As you can see, I'm wearing shorts because there's an incident that also happened with men that we're working with that said one of our members should pull down her skirt because he's a leader and his culture and whatnot. How does that involve us? What does your culture have to do with me that you have to dictate what I do with my own body?
All right. So now we're having these issues, these difficulties. So where do we go from now? What's happening with the declarations that we are supposed to be concluded inside?
The declarations are going to continue. Personally, for me, I'm not going to go back until she's back and she gives her sincere apology. Because first of all, she didn't even acknowledge what she shared or how it happened or what happened, or she didn't even mention Pindile's feelings. She didn't even consider her feelings. So what is an apology if you are not considering the person you hurt? So I'm sorry, I'm not going to participate in whatever that's going on until that lady is back and she apologizes, or she apologizes to Pindile and tells her, gives her a proper apology.
This image was shared on social media?
Yes, it was shared on a social media account by the certain lady, the lady we're speaking about.
But of course, this was live when this was happening. These images of Pindile have already been out there. So why is it a problem that one individual shared this image that was on live television that millions of people who would have been watching already have seen?
Okay, consent. She knew full well that the media is there. She knew that you all were there, and then she was willing to show you her scars. But then she didn't ask for that. She didn't give consent to that. So that is where the problem lies. And it seems like people don't understand that whole concept. Because rape is also, you don't have consent when it comes to that. Consent is a very big issue. So if we're saying that we want you to apologize for not, and also, why would you want to share something that personal and that intimate without the person's consent? Why would you want to do that?
Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that. As you can hear, we have a bit of drama here with some disagreements in the manner that Pindile's visuals were handled by some of the delegates. Pindile, of course, is a lady that yesterday when the president was here, she took off her clothes to show some of her physical scars from her rape incident a couple of years back, but that seems to be now a source of controversy in the manner that it has been shared on social media. Apparently some of the delegates shared it on social media without her consent, and the only consent that Pindile had apparently given was for the cameras that were there, but not for individuals to share it in their own personal accounts. So that is causing the delays currently here with the summit. It's now back to you, Peter. As we come to the end of the summit on gender-based violence, I am now joined by the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi Pandor. Minister, thank you very much. I noticed you were here from day one and right till the end, day two. Just talk to us about the summit. I see there's a bit of drama currently going on, but before we get there, let's reflect overall. How has it gone?
I think it's gone very well. The substance was the commissions where the 5 thematic areas were discussed. All the commissions were able to report this morning, and they had identified 5 key action areas as well as a significant game changer in each of the thematic areas. So the reports were accepted. They've been consolidated into the declaration that was adopted unanimously in the final session. So I think things have gone well, and I hope that the cooperation that has led to the summit being held will exist over time and will be maintained.
And let's just for the benefit of our viewers, just talk about some of the declarations that were mentioned there, Minister, that come on top of your mind. What happens from now on? What are the declarations saying?
Well, I think now the responsibility lies certainly with the President's office, with the Ministry of Women, as well as social development. A lot of the issues seem to center around 3 areas of governance: justice, women and support for them, economic empowerment of women, and then appropriate support for survivors of gender-based violence. So those would form, I think, the key focal areas as we advance in addressing the matters that were raised here.
All right. There's also, of course, in the declaration talk of a need of a social education in terms of socializing the country into, or sensitizing the people of the country into issues of gender-based violence. Does the education sector play a role in that at all?
Well, certainly it does, and I think for me what stood out in the summit is the recognition that this is a problem for all of South Africa. It's not women's problem, it's not a problem only of males, it's our problem as a nation, and we must address it together. And the beginning is the early formative stages, the at home, how we raise particularly our boys, but also our young girls as well, and then what happens in school, what happens from early childhood right through. All the levels of education have been referred to, the kinds of policy frameworks, the regulatory environment to ensure that any form of gender-based violence in an education institution is treated with extreme seriousness. There was a strong call for that.
All right, and now we've just seen some disagreements inside over the issue of sharing of certain images and body shaming of the lady that showed his scars to the president. Just your take on this.
Well, the young woman who had been identified as having posted these images apologized to the plenary, and in particular to the individual, the lady who had revealed her body scars during a plenary session yesterday. The young woman expressed genuine regret at what had happened. I think given where we've come from, the fact that we've arrived at a point where we have a declaration we've adopted by acclamation is a very important achievement.
So the summit is a success according to you?
From my observations of what has happened, I think everyone who had a contribution to make and who had concerns to express, I believe that opportunity was created.
Minister, thank you very much for your time. That is Minister of Higher Education, Naledi Pandor, just giving her inputs after 2 days of this summit on gender-based violence. And with that, it's back to you.
Was it alive or? Is it alive or we recording? Okay, stand by.
Is it alive?
Yeah, it's live.
Okay. Sorry, then I need to should I stand this side? I'm not getting program sound though. They're on advert, okay. Are you aware of the little scuffle that they had inside regarding the social media?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you can also touch on that for us?
Yeah.
Okay. In a minute, okay. Okay, but then
All right, yeah, sure. Then you come back and stay here. Okay, ma, we're going live about a minute and we come to us.
Oh, no. I'm used to the dramas.
Oh. I'm just for some.
they're gonna ad lib and then come to me, or I must ad lib. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. All right. Yep. Just put program to me. I can hear program now. You can let them pass. Well, good afternoon once more to our viewers at home. There has been a slight delay with the closure of the summit, as we expected Minister Batabile Dlamini to be on the podium and give those closing remarks. There was a bit of drama that came out here relating, of course, to Pindile, who had shared, her images, or rather Pindile, who had revealed some of her body scars from a rape incident that she had of course, endured previously, and some of these images then went to social media, and there was issues of body shaming, and those incidents were addressed here. But at this point in time, I'm joined by Professor Hlengwe Mkhize, representing, of course, Progressive Women Movement of South Africa. Thank you very much, Professor. If you can just talk to us about the delay with the closure today. What happened?
Thank you very much for having me. I really hope the report on this summit won't be dominated by what happened at the end. There was an apology from one of the participants, a young woman who had posted some of the images of what emerged yesterday from the testimonies. And of course, you know, in this digital era we live in, it went viral. And so many people had access to that, and they retweeted and they communicated. But she apologized and she disappeared. So there was a little bit of a commotion because people felt the apology didn't go too far. And of course, you know, from a progressive women's movement side, we wouldn't like some kangaroo courts of some kind. We felt, you know, in this digital era, things like this will happen. Not only from her, but from other people. What's important for us is to rally around the survivors who had opened up their wounds and support them. Because surely talking in an open session, you know very well what it entails. Many people will capture the image for different reasons. But what's important is that women are in agreement on one thing, that they've never had the head of states really taking over the responsibility of saying, I will monitor and ensure that I hold people accountable when it comes to the implementation of the action lines of gender-based violence. I think it's a positive thing we came up with. But also, for the first time in a long period of time, civil society has been put in a platform where we're able to work in partnership with government officials. In the absence of that, civil society was exploited by all sorts of agencies who really did not have an aligned agenda. But also us as civil society, we have said it can't be business as usual. We should do what we're supposed to do. We should be there for people, and we should be held accountable for our interventions that we commit to.
All right, thank you very much. That is Professor Hlengwe Mkhize from the Progressive Women's Movement of South Africa, just giving her inputs as we are closing the day 2 and the final day of this summit on gender-based violence. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, thank you.
Martin.
Yes.
How is it sounding now?
Okay.
Blaine, and to our viewers at home, indeed, of course, yesterday was quite an emotional day where we've had a number of women giving those testimonies, and one such woman is right next to me. That is Upindile Nkrumah. Ma'am, you were one of the women that gave their testimony there, and you even took off your clothes to show your scars of sexual abuse. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'm one of the survivors of South Africa. In fact, I'm not a survivor, I'm a rape victim, because I didn't survive anything. They raped me and I got operations. My life is not normal anymore. I live their lives, the lives of rapists. I'm not living my life anymore. So that's why I'm saying I'm a rape victim, not a survivor.
And of course, you said you got an operation. So what had happened to you, ma'am? I mean, we know it was rape, but also it seems that you were also assaulted. It was quite a violent crime.
Yes. Okay, I was raped. And then they put a bread plastic on my vagina. And when I go there's this thing that they do after you get raped in the hospital. They didn't check me thoroughly. And then they give me the injection on my womb. I don't know it's for what, because they didn't explain anything. And I was traumatized by then to ask all of these questions. And then I went home. After a year, I couldn't walk. One side of mine was dead. And I went to hospital, to Tembisa Hospital, because I'm staying in Tembisa. They said they don't see anything wrong with me. I have to come with my boyfriend. I told them I don't have a boyfriend. And I keep on going to the clinics because it was affecting me. And I can see that I'm not getting help. And I spoke to 1 in 9 people, Carrie, by the name of Carrie Shelva. And then she said to me, we'll take you to Joburg Gen.
So you went through this incident, but you didn't get even enough help at health facilities. So now let's talk about the demonstration yesterday, where you then had to take off your clothes to show your scars. Well, what were you hoping? What message were you hoping to send out there?
Okay. Since I was raped, it's been my dream to speak with the president and to show the president what happened to my body, that they did all of those things because I was raped. So yesterday it was my first time to meet face to face with the president.
Show your scars. Well, what were you hoping? What message were you hoping to send out there?
Okay. Since I was raped, it's been.
The demonstration yesterday, where you then had to take off your clothes to show your scars. Well, what were you hoping? What message were you hoping to send out there?
Okay. Since I was raped. Okay. Since I was raped, it's been my dream to speak with the president and to show the president what happened to my body, that they did all of those things because I was raped. So yesterday it was my first time to meet face to face with the president of South Africa. So for me to remove my clothes is for the president to see what I'm talking about. Because sometimes we talk and they don't understand us. When we said we've got scars, they think we've got only scars inside. No, we don't have scars inside. We've got scars that we see every day when we're taking a bath, going to work. We see those scars and we remember the rape every day of our lives.
And then with this summit, it's the first of its kind gender.
Scars and we remember the rape every day of our lives. The rape every day of our lives.